So we'll begin today's masterclass by acknowledging that we are located on the traditional lands of Metechilon, Matagami, and Flying Post First Nations, which is home to many Ojibwe, Cree, and Oji-Cree, as well as Algonquin and Métis people. We also acknowledge that we are situated in Treaty 9 territory, also known as the James Bay Treaty, which is steeped in a rich Indigenous history of many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. So thank you very much for joining us this morning for AI in Agriculture, looking at the benefits, challenges, and applications in agriculture masterclass. So this is our second session of our 2025 Agri-Business Knowledge Camp. Over the next couple of months, we'll continue with a series of masterclass and webinars designed to increase knowledge and build capacity within your business to grow your operations. Agri-Business Knowledge Camp is a program that's led by Timmins Economic Development in collaboration with Bioenterprise Canada and Link North. So before we get things going with the masterclass, I want to introduce Carla from Bioenterprise Canada to say a few words. You're on mute, Carla.
That was something we should know by now, shouldn't we? Good morning, everyone. I am Carla Berquois. I am with Bioenterprise Canada. Welcome to the masterclass today. Bioenterprise is Canada's food and agri-tech engine. In short, we call it the engine. And we are a national business accelerator network of collaboration, commercialization, and thought leadership. We try to empower innovations and create growth and success opportunities for startups and scale-ups in agri-tech and agri-food tech. Through the engine, we harness the skills, the experiences, and networks of leaders in ag innovation in the ecosystem across Canada. And we are an alliance where we try to support all the businesses in their early to final stages of commercialization. And through this same network, we share resources, we share knowledge and connectivity with the engine members and our partners. I'd like to invite you all to join our engine online community, and I will be sharing the link to join on in the chat here just right now. Thank you, Ross.
Thanks, Carla. So just quickly about the organizations that I represent. So the Timmins Economic Development, we focus on advancing community and economic development in Timmins and the region. Developing the agriculture sector is an important sector for us in particular. We support businesses by helping them with accessing funding and other resources to develop their agri-business. As well, we work with regional communities and partners such as Bioenterprise to create a thriving and sustainable agriculture business sector. Link North is our regional innovation center. We provide business advisory services as well as boost funding up to $10,000 to support our entrepreneur and business clients with launching, scaling, and growing their business operations. So whether you're an entrepreneur looking to start a business or an established agriculture business looking to grow, our organizations can support you in a number of ways. I'll provide my contact information in the chat as well, so please feel free to reach out to me. I want to now introduce Bethany Deshpande, who's an innovation advisor with Bioenterprise. Bethany is a seasoned leader and entrepreneur who has spent the last decade driving innovation in AI and agri-tech. Through her experiences, she has to understand the benefits, challenges, and applications of AI in agriculture and other spaces. Bethany works as a coach and advisor for several Canadian startups and advises agriculture and biotech startups in her role as an innovation advisor with Bioenterprise. Please welcome Bethany.
Thanks, Ross. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. I'm really excited to speak with you today about AI in agriculture, what AI is and is capable of doing on your farm or facility today. And some of the ways I think, the benefits of this, the challenges of this, but also how this might grow and develop in future, because we are still in just the very beginning ages, periods of this technology. So I'm going to cover I'm going to spend the first little bit of this on sort of AI fundamentals. So what is AI? What is it not as well? I think is really important to acknowledge. I'm going to give some examples of companies that exist, some startups, some that are, well on their way to growth, but almost all of which you could purchase their technology today, or it's available on the market. And then we'll talk about just some of the challenges and considerations that exist in this space. I don't want to just paint this rosy picture of everything AI is sparkly and amazing. There's obviously challenges that come with incorporating a new technology on your farm or in your fields. A little bit on future trends, and I think why this work that's being done is really important. And then I will leave a good 15, 20 minutes for questions at the end if anyone would like to dive deeper into anything in particular. So what is AI? AI is essentially, here is a machine's ability to perform the cognitive functions we associate with human minds. So perceiving, reasoning, learning, interacting with environment, being able to solve problems, and exercising creativity. And so typically there's a few parts to an AI system, just very fundamentally. So it has some kind of hardware or computer-based infrastructure. We're feeding it information, and I often encourage folks to think about that information as sort of one of the five senses. So things we can see with our eyes, things we can hear, and of course, we're not that good at feeding to computers things that we can smell or taste or touch. Although, with robotics, we can certainly, robots can touch things. But a lot of the time this data comes as, raw data, spreadsheets, lots of numbers, information. Now we see a lot of things where you can feed, like with ChatGPT, and a full long notebook or Word document or whatever it may be into it. But it in some way needs to take in raw information, and then it follows a set of instructions. So there is an algorithm telling it what to do with that information, and then it provides some output or some information. So the machine takes a bunch of stuff in, thinks about it in a way that humans have asked it to, and then provides the output. There's a lot of different types of AI. AI is not brand new, but I want to make sure to acknowledge that it's sort of come a long way. So the first ideas around AI were developed in 1950s. It came in the form of academic papers, and this was all about using, this broad field of getting machines to repeat human behavior, tasks, be able to solve problems, and so forth. I'm going to give examples of all of these next, but I encourage you to think about some early AI systems or some really, basic AI. And all of these encompass the next. So a subset of AI overall is machine learning. And so machine learning looks at patterns in data. It's trying to learn to make predictions by processing data rather than receiving explicit programming instructions. And that started being used in the 1980s. Next, we have deep learning. This is a little more recent, so came out around 2010. And deep learning processes data through neural networks. So we've literally copied how the human brain works and how it uses things in order to have computers learn increasingly complex features and make really sophisticated predictions. And most recently, we've all seen generative AI come into being. So using and generative AI being a subset of deep learning. So using large neural networks to learn complex patterns, and the output of generative AI is new images or new video, new data in some way. I'm going to go to examples of all of these because I think that's really important. So AI, and these are relatively more recent examples, but some recommendation systems are, relatively simple and based on AI as a broad category. So things like Netflix recommending movies you might like, product recommendations on websites like Amazon might come into play. Your spam filter, it's really looking for specific phrases or specific types of things, and it's going to filter out junk email. I also, navigation apps, these are getting, more complex over time. But when they first began, it was just how do we get to A to B? How do we do this the fastest? Now it takes in other data like traffic and accidents that might help it be a little smarter, but at its root, it's AI overall, general category. Your Roomba, not everyone owns a Roomba, obviously, but these like smart vacuums that drive around, they're looking, they're taking in data through video, as well as bumping into things and saying, oh, that's probably not the right way. And then they might, go a different direction. So all of those are examples of, we're not talking machine learning at this point, very broad and relatively simple AI technologies. Machine learning gets more specific. So I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but banks are using machine learning algorithms to identify what's different if there's any suspicious transactions. And they look at that based on having a system that is learning what normal spending is for you and for your card, and then flagging anything different. Twitter, Facebook, a lot of social media apps are showing content that they think you'll be most interested in that's learning based off your interactions. So even how much you pause the screen at a certain point is being recorded and added into training data for your specific personalized news feed or content. A lot of product recommendation systems. So we talked about this broadly in the AI sense, but with machine learning, we've been able to get more specific with these as well, and determining which products to recommend based off machine learning models. So the recommendation should technically be improving over time based on what you're purchasing, based on what you're looking at. And a lot of weather predictions that we look at now have gotten better because of machine learning being applied to. This usually only applies for short-term weather forecasts, but we're a little better at saying how the weather is tomorrow or, Saturday, instead of just having this sort of simple weather prediction. So it's used all the time in meteorological work, in science, and so forth. I always like to say machine learning is kind of like where they have the cars that drive now that will tell you where you might bump into a car next to you, or they alert you and all those things. That's machine learning. Whereas when we get to deep learning, again, another subset, it's a subset of machine learning. So we're getting more specific, but things like self-driving cars are an example of deep learning versus just simple alerts that you might see in machine learning. Image recognition. So when, your photo app is able to tag your photos, it's actually looking at what is in the photo and giving information as a result of that. So I use this all the time. I take photos of like my driver's license or my health card, which may not be the most secure, but I find this really helpful because if you search for your health card to come up, it's then able to do that. And that's because image recognition has been applied to it. Maybe not health card. Maybe I'll say library card because I think that's more preferred by, I don't want to get in trouble with any security expert. Natural language processing, which is also used, we'll talk a little more about this for generative AI, but being able to translate between languages. Deep learning allows you to do this so much better than before, where it was just sort of word by word translating as an example. And so that's a really good application of natural language processing. Self-driving cars, as I spoke about, they're making decisions about where to go and what to do. Not always the best decisions. I think we have a really high expectation for how our self-driving cars will perform, which can be a little challenging, but do I believe we'll get there? Absolutely. And then we also use deep learning more and more in medical image analysis. So when you have an X-ray or an MRI, we're now able to detect diseases more accurately and sometimes earlier. There are examples of AI being able to diagnose breast cancer or some really tumors, essentially, when they're tiny, instead of when a human would normally see them. And so that's really beneficial for patients. And lastly, generative AI. So this has all come up in the last little bit. So everyone I feel has heard of ChatGPT and text writing, image generation. We're seeing a lot more, which is really fun. You can also generate music and video these days. Some of that can be really alarming because with video, you can create very realistic but fake videos of people and things like that. So we'll have to see how these things develop. Same thing with image generation. But these are all examples of AI in real life being used today. On farm, we see this as well. So ChatGPT is really excellent at taking your protocols and maybe making recommendations or building you a protocol template for something that might be happening. There's already in what exists, there's so many different things that someone can do. I'm going to, benefits. So I won't go too deep into this because I spent a lot of time on the last slide, but it's huge. We can now automate things that we were not able to automate before and do that more effectively, make it a little bit smart. Reduce human error. We, as humans, spend a lot of time and money doing, repetitive, whether it be data processing, like, and all this kind of stuff that a computer can do just much better and make far less errors than a person might do. Same thing for repetitive tasks. I think the truth of it is when someone sits down and does something over and over, I don't know if you've experienced this, but eventually I make more and more mistakes. And so it's just a natural part of what happens. And for those to be eliminated and also being done more quickly and more accurately with AI is a really wonderful thing. AI works 24/7. It doesn't need breaks. It can be continuously working. And for R&D, you can analyze a ton more data a lot quicker, which might bring out insights that were invisible before. And that's a really interesting thing. And I think that's true in R&D, but also in a lot of other fields, right? In agriculture, we have so much data from so many different places. Not everyone has a PhD in data analytics, available to them. But with ChatGPT or with some of these other technologies, we can start now really looking at what is in that data. I'm now going to go to a few examples. I've picked out a whole range of them. So I've tried to get a couple different crop type examples, some dairy, which is the startup I founded and ran is a dairy startup. So we'll talk a little bit about that. A lot of these are, this is publicly available information from 6 companies. Not all of them, but many of them are Bioenterprise clients, so companies that work with Bioenterprise. So, and they're all startups but whose product is available. I tried to stick to that so that, because yeah, it seemed a little silly to talk about things that were still in development. So Vivid Machines, I hope some folks are familiar with this. They make it fast and easy to collect data from blossom to harvest for precision crop load management. They provide insights for growers, packers, and marketers. And this equipment, the camera system that they have here, so this is a really good example of taking in computer vision data or sight, essentially. But their system mounts onto any type of farm equipment. So here you see it on like a little ATV, but it can also go on a tractor. It can go on a truck, whatever system you use on your farm. So relatively lightweight in terms of new equipment that needs to be acquired. This is an example of computer vision and deep learning working together. So as I said, they're collecting video, they're collecting images, and then analyzing those with AI to be able to say something about the crop. And they track crop progress. It helps increase yields. It reduces cost by focusing labor on specific areas that need attention, and also helps to improve management decisions. So I've tried to just really clearly write out what the companies believe is their key benefits, because I think it's really critical that they help in some way, that it's providing value to farmers. And often that value has to do with production increase, cost reduction, and improved decision-making, which is no small thing. You kind of get these compounding benefits over time. The next one I want to tell you about is Picada, and they have a system that you can see here. And essentially, you collect a sample out in the field, plant tissue, and they will analyze it for a range of nutrients, 14 or so available today for potato and corn. And so again, really similar to the Vivid systems we looked at, this is using computer vision and deep learning as well, but in a really different way. So instead of pointing the camera at your crop, we're now looking at it in this machine under consistent lighting and things like that, which will make that easier. You get a ton of benefits. You get a ton of data that helps you understand how the crop is doing. You can use this on site really easily, analyze many different samples in one go, and you get that data immediately. You get it right away instead of having to send samples to the lab. So very beneficial there. Ground Truth Ag is another one. They're using AI to deliver real-time automated grain grading and quality insights. And so again, this is computer vision and machine learning now applied to totally different, stage and product, but they get you real-time grain quality and graded data in the field, so you can make more confident decisions more quickly, really streamlined workflow, as well as consistent grading. So AI, part of what the argument this company is making is that AI-based grading is actually better than, or can be better than those done by professionals in the field. And we can talk a lot about that. I do think I have sometimes split perspectives on that, because I think you always need a human to be using these and reviewing them and all these kinds of things. But nonetheless, company doing something really neat, really different in the ag space. I think this is my last crop one. So this one is about planning ideal equipment paths through a field. And so being able to really clearly say where different equipment is doing. It uses machine learning and essentially is there to increase efficiency of field operations, reduce input costs by not having any overlapping passes, and improving the utilization of the machine and the equipment on farm. This one I picked out because it's really interesting, and I know some equipment is pretty much able to do self-driving operations, if I think of John Deere and a few others. But I think what Verge is doing is also a really important key to that puzzle of enabling self-driving machinery, but in a really smart way. And so that's why I picked it. It was an interesting one that I saw that I thought might be of interest. I have two dairy examples, Catalytics, and then I'll speak a little bit about SomaDetect, which was my own company. So Catalytics optimizes staffing resources, implements digital twinning for real-time farm monitoring system, and offers robust data modeling and forecasting tools. So what's really neat is like behind the scenes, they're using a ton of machine learning, deep learning, and generative AI to build their product. So one of the things you can do is use a chat agent with this technology. It's one of the best examples of a chat agent that I've seen. You can essentially talk to your whole farm. So they're going to bring in financial information, staff information, any other data they can get on the dairy, and you can essentially talk to and query that data through a chat agent. You can do a ton of other things. It automates tasks, optimizes resources, does some really deep data analysis as well, and seeks to overall improve herd health and feed efficiency. But this is an example, I think, of a company using AI in a really useful way, and that they've drawn from all these different tools, machine learning tools, deep learning, and generative AI to be able to produce that benefit is really wonderful. Last company is SomaDetect. So SomaDetect it's an inline system, fits into the milking equipment, and gives dairy farmers real-time inline data at their fingertips. And so this was main things analyzed include somatic cell counts, and it is an example of computer vision and deep learning. So similar to the others, we're capturing video of milk or images of milk flowing through the pipe, and then being able to offer insights on herd health, management recommendations, and so forth, and ultimately help reduce somatic cell counts. I'm going to talk a little bit about challenges and considerations, because I think these are really important. So AI is not going to replace every single person on a farm. A lot of AI, you still need a human overseeing it in some way, shape, or form. And I want to underscore that. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I think, why that is. So we often use this phrase in AI development, which is garbage in, garbage out. So if the data quality that you have or the quantity is not sufficient, you're not going to get meaningful insights. And we know that even based on ChatGPT, from when it first started to now, is trained on far, far, far more data, and really, all of human, like, written language that it could get its hands on. And this is where we've gotten with it. And so really interesting. But yeah, having good data is key. And so on farms, there are lots of farms where their data quality is not great. Maybe something is recorded oddly, or not, it's on paper instead of ever being in a computer. And that can be challenging. It'll make it difficult to personalize things to your operation. Data storage. Sometimes this just takes a huge amount of data, and you might end up having a server amount of data on your own farm. And that can be costly. There's a lot to think about there of if you want that, and then where you would put something like that as well, in a barn, and so forth. Privacy and ownership as well is something that comes up a lot. So who owns the data? Who owns the generated information? How much are you paying for that over time? And things like that really comes into play. Barriers. One of the largest challenges in the AI space has to do with connectivity between existing technologies. So if you have, I don't know, I'm struggling to think, well, whatever your feed information or your field information, connecting with your weather system and so forth, it takes real work to connect those pieces together, and it's often just the very first step of what needs to happen. Internet connectivity, so some farms, depending on where you are, might really lack internet or have really patchy internet. I think most folks face that at some point, or maybe have faced it. And then farm size. So if it's a relatively small operation, it might feel pretty expensive to buy some of these technologies or to get them installed in your operation. And so there is always sort of this cost benefit analysis that needs to be done. One of the challenges I see as well is adoption and training. So trust for these products, they tend to come from smaller companies, startups, rather than your big, conglomerates. And if no one adopts them when they're small, then they don't ever get to be big. But at the same time, as a new organization, it can be really challenging. Sometimes there's a lot of education required to have someone pick up and actually use the system. Product performance. We all expect, I think, these things, like I said this with self-driving cars as well, we expect it to be not just better than a human, but just 100% accurate all the time, not make any mistakes. And that's just not realistic. It's not how, ChatGPT is not going to write you the perfect whatever essay or email. You need to read through it and make edits, and that's true for these data systems as well. And then lastly, just implementing into existing protocols. So sometimes, so this is just change management, but you might have a way of doing something and then incorporating new information into it, especially imperfect information sometimes, might not feel like the best thing to do. Safety and ethical considerations. So again, important of human oversight. So someone on the dairy or on the farm, should be the main user of the technology and either continuing to train it or just partnering with it instead of expecting it to replace 100% what it does. Some jobs may be displaced, and that is something to consider in any business and any operation. Is what are we losing by using this? Algorithm bias. I've not seen this be too great of a concern in agriculture, but I wanted to bring it up that these tools, you do end up having to bias them one way or the other. And so and we've seen that be pretty disastrous in some instances, but the algorithm will be biased one way or the other in terms of what it sees and what it's looking for. And that's okay. That's just by the nature of how these things work, but we shouldn't be overly surprised when that happens. And then again, small versus large operations, the benefits might just be so much larger for big farms. And that's something to think about too. Is there a return on investment here for you? I'm going to go pretty quickly through these future trends and insights, and then just so I'm sure that we're leaving some time for questions. But I think AI technologies, they're being developed really quickly and brought to the farm in new ways that hasn't been possible before, and especially driving things like efficiency, sustainability, and profitability. And I think all three aspects need to be true somewhat in order for that to be for adoption to take place. And when I say sustainability, I'm not necessarily referring to greenhouse gas benefits and that kind of thing, although that's obviously really important, but also just, does it add to the sustainability and long-term success of your business? I think we are seeing more and more AI-powered robots. So autonomous robots for field tasks, They are sometimes more precise, more efficient than having people do some of this work. We're seeing now more and more robots being kind of built one on top of the other and being able to work collaboratively, which is really interesting. A lot of them do individual specified tasks, but when that stuff comes together, it's really great. There is a lot of work being done in terms of data and supply chain connectivity. So not just knowing about the product that leaves your operation, but being able to see that through the supply chain and actually connecting that information can be really beneficial for consumers, for the farmer as well, and really everyone along that chain. And so there's all kinds of interesting things being done here, different IoT, Internet of Things, sensors coming together and being analyzed by AI in near real time to be able to provide recommendations or automated actions, such as with a smart irrigation system as an example. And then, yeah, just overall improving traceability of the product through the whole line. So from farm to, whatever comes next for your specific type of crop or livestock. And then lastly, personalized agents and technology. So I think a lot of these technologies it's not that something is being built and it can be applied on your farm. It's being built, it can learn how your farm works, and it can become, personal and really important for the operation. So being able to provide personalized recommendations based on all of the data in your operation is an example of that. I just want to end with this quote: "The volume and complexity of data that is now being generated, too fast for humans to process and apply efficiently, has increased the potential of machine learning as well as the need for it." So no human being can process all the data that we have available to us, but machine learning can, and it can be really helpful in that regard. What questions do you have?
Thank you, Bethany. Yeah, if you want to ask a question, you can unmute yourself or you can type it in the chat and I'll ask it. Okay, so
sorry, Bethany, I have a question actually. I was kind of percolating and you somewhat answered it there towards the end, but I guess I'm just more curious about any startups that are focused on food security or food systems more generally.
Yeah, absolutely. The examples I gave were specific to sort of the on-farm application of AI, but absolutely there are people working on blockchain for product traceability. There's just many examples of this. I'm trying to think of like a really specific one, but yeah, more and more the sort of traceability of products through the food system. I think also we live at a time where a lot of consumers want to know more about their product. In Canada, we're all asking, wait, where is this from? Is it from here? Is it from the US? And so I think that's, a very recent drive for better traceability as well. But yeah, that's one of those things that has been covered. I think people have been building in that space for over a decade. And it's just getting better and better because the need for traceability is only increasing over time. And the desire of consumers to have that information. So absolutely. And it helps, it helps with recalls, it helps with food safety, it helps with all those different things. And I think for farmers, even being able to know and tell the story of where your product ends up, in what grocery stores and in what part of the grocery store, I think is really important.
Great, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have a question in the chat around data quality. So you mentioned the garbage in, garbage out. Can you speak to the benefits of improved digital ag data management for a particular farm or even a service provider and the broader industry as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way I would answer this is, or like AI should do something. If you adopt a new technology, it should do something to solve a problem that you have on your farm or that you want addressed. And my concern for some operations is that they will, or what I've seen is folks will reach out and say, "Oh my gosh, I have this issue. I have this problem. Can you solve it?" And actually, there might be several companies that have potential products that would be a really good fit, except that the data quality or the data that they would need in order to make a product really work well is missing. And so there's a side of this, which is that there's all these folks out there who are building solutions who want to provide a really good product and a working product. And I love seeing how personalized these can get as well to an operation. But that only works if your data is there, is well stored. And I'm not talking for 25 years, but if you have a year of good data, that helps a lot. If you have 5 years of good data, even better. But something you might want to do now, just as these, given the progress that's being made and the speed it's being made out there, is make sure that you're capturing the most relevant data as best as possible and storing it in a way that's accessible to you or to, I mean, a lot of these other companies have gotten really good at going on a farm and pulling different data sources together. I think that's a responsibility they've taken on, which is wonderful. But just making sure that you have the data. I wouldn't want anyone to be surprised and not be able to use a technology because they didn't have, the data recorded properly or as other farms do.
Okay, so another question. So can you talk about your dairy farm AI development? In particular, what 3 apps do you think every dairy farmer should use?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I built Soma Detect from scratch. So started in 2016 and just exited the company last year. And so I've watched dairy specifically change a ton. And even one of the things for me is as we were building Soma Detect, we went from having to build a lot of things manually to now when you develop a new AI technology, there's all these tools and all these other things you can bring in. So it's a lot faster and more efficient for the development of AI stuff. I definitely would recommend looking into Catalytics as I love what they're doing and I see that being really beneficial on farm. I would be curious about any challenges on a dairy operation, and and what you would want to improve. So Soma Detect handles things like somatic cell counts specifically. There's stuff coming out around nutrition monitoring as well. I think that all of that can be really beneficial depending on the size of the farm and what the farm is dealing with. I've also seen a lot of work being done in the breeding space, which is, fundamental AI from the beginning. So just depending on what the farm needs, I would recommend taking a look at what is out there and potentially signing a lot of new stuff. You could sign up as a pilot site, or you can just ask to test it for a year and see how it works on your farm. And that might be a really beneficial way to learning more.
So the next question is, can you share insights on how AI and digital technologies are being applied to streamline back office operations in agriculture? So particularly addressing some challenges like labor shortages and
Yeah.
administrative inefficiencies.
Yeah, so I've seen Catalytics take this on in the dairy space where they have essentially a task manager, and it's really meant to be your like benefit you from an HR perspective in terms of keeping folks clear with their tasks, happy with their work, and all this different stuff. I am sure someone is doing work in other spaces, but I can't think of any good examples. But absolutely, I think it's really interesting because in other fields, we saw this with restaurants. We saw this with, I mean, even just HR in general. People management is tough and it takes a long time. And you want to make sure that everyone has the right tasks and is doing them and all these different things. And these technologies can certainly help with that. It's just a matter of finding the right thing for your operation and whether it's a crop or a livestock business. And so, but yeah, there's definitely things solving for really retention is one of the ways people are looking at it. How do we retain people longer in these jobs? But then also, how do we reduce admin inefficiencies? How much of this admin can we automate? That I think is really important.
Okay. So now a question about balance. So how can AI help farmers, balance their goals for sustainability and profitability, especially in the face of things like climate change and changing consumer demands?
Yeah, I've been watching the space of carbon credits for a number of years, and we're still early in Canada on this. But I think for every farm out there, there will be huge benefits that can be captured in terms of carbon credits with regards to like sustainability in terms of CO2 reduction and so forth. So part of me is really excited about the next few years and carbon credits and how we start counting these for farmers, all of whom are playing a major role in the carbon cycle just by growing a crop every year and so forth. I think there will be livestock operations that might be more challenging that are asked to do some big changes. But absolutely, I think that finding sustainable things that also drive profitability or some benefit is really important. And I think we'll see more of that come to light. But of course, any change is challenging. And I just think regulation will come in, but regulation will have to come in a way that is functional or works for farmers because we really depend on them as food sources. And so for me, it's more about telling this story of all the ways farms are beneficial from a sustainability and systems perspective, why we want them in our country and in our backyards, instead of focusing on the negative message of whatever it may be. Farms are terrible. They use too much water and produce too much carbon and all these kinds of things. And so my hope is that there will be people telling that story, some farmers, but also people in industry that can take on that sort of proper messaging around agriculture, sustainability and profitability, because no one's going to do any job without making meaningful dollars. And it's not without farming is not without risks, and I think we all know that.
Okay. So we have a question from a business analytics student at Cape Breton University who also has an MBA in agribusiness as well as experience in the field. He's just wondering what the opportunities are for business analysts in the agribusiness industry in coming years, and will AI and automation take over some of those tasks or most of them?
No, so I think there would be huge opportunities for someone with your background. People are often looking for, whether it's, I see this in the tech companies, but I wouldn't be surprised on farm. People are looking for folks who can understand their data and help process it, help feed it into AI systems or whatever it may be. And I think, there are places you could work as a consultant or as a full-time employee doing that work, especially where you already have experience with data collection. I see here as well. So I've seen more and more a drive. A lot of the major agricultural universities are offering data analytics or data science courses alongside their dairy science or their agriculture training as well. And in some places, Cornell does regular things to encourage interaction and work between their agricultural students and computer science and data science students. So there's a lot of really interesting things being done that will require people that, from of all different skills.
So do you have any specific working examples of AI in regenerative agriculture in Canada, maybe Ontario?
Not that I can think of right now. I'm so sorry. I don't know if anyone here has, or maybe Ross, you know of one, or
Yeah, I'd have to say offhand,
yeah,
nothing's coming to mind.
yeah. Do I believe that it exists? Absolutely. But no, I can't think of something specific.
Okay, are there any specific platforms you recommend that support small scale farms with crop planning, maximizing succession, planting efficiency, etc.?
So crops are not my my main specialty, so I don't know of one in particular, but I know of one of the things I didn't cover that exists out there is lots of folks who will take satellite data and help with those types of things. So there's one called Cropino that I've been working with at Bioenterprise. And I think that there are a few others in this space as well. That's really what comes to mind here. I don't know if they'll do at this point every single thing that you're mentioning, but certainly with planning and just getting a sense of your field health and so forth.
Okay. So yeah, just close things off with like one final question here. So you mentioned considerations for small versus large operations. So the majority of operations in our region fall in the small category.
Yeah.
Given like the overwhelming and that AI is and how fast it's being integrated, what are some of the easier AI applications that you might recommend for, let's say, a small family-owned agriculture business that might help them enhance their operations or see some quick results?
Yeah, I would recommend that they spend some time getting to know things like ChatGPT and generative AI and using them, use them to develop processes, use them to maybe with a staff issue or staff question. You can feed manually, you can feed a lot of your data into these systems and then being able to ask questions to your farm and get some feedback. And it's not it's a freely available thing that gets you using AI in the most basic sense. And then the other thing I would do and recommend is that they, look up and reach out to 3 companies or so that are doing something that solves a problem or, addresses something that you would like to improve on your farm. Maybe you have, it's common in dairy that there are KPIs and things that they're trying to improve pretty rigorously on the operation. And one of the things you can do is just look at what is the technology out there? What does it take to adopt one of these technologies? I think a lot of these companies are happy to work with small farms, but just acknowledge that they may be marketed more towards larger operations, but that doesn't mean they have nothing to offer to small farms or small dairies at the same time.
Okay. Well, thank you, Bethany, for a great presentation and sharing your vast knowledge. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's masterclass. So I shared our social in the chat, so we encourage you to follow Timmins Economic Development on our social media to stay up to date on upcoming Agri-Business Knowledge Camp masterclasses and other programming offer. And I wish everyone has a great day. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Bye.